Hi everyone, welcome. In this video, I'll be sharing something interesting that I recently learned while working on a real project. So we were debugging an API issue where everything looked correct, the request, the payload, the authentication, yet the API kept failing. So to give you an idea of what happened, I've created a very basic fast API application. This is server.py. I've used fast API to create an application. I have created this login endpoint where what I'm doing is I'm extracting the request payload which contains login credentials. Then I'm converting to XML document. I'm validating the schema of login credentials. So if the schema is right, then I'll return a success message. Else I will throw an error. So this is my XML schema which looks like this. There is email and there is password. Then I've created a client script where I'm using HTTPX to make a request on my server. Here I'm sending this payload which contains password and email. And this is a login handler which is making request to the server. So let's start the server first. So we are getting an internal server error, which means our API has failed. Now what I will do, I will change the order of these fields. First is our email and then password. And if I make the request again, so we got a success message, which means our API bugged in this case after changing the sequence of payload fields. But why? Now to understand what is actually happening here, let's first understand how two applications communicate with each other. I will draw two services here. First one will be our client, and then second one will be our server. So when two services communicate, they are basically exchanging data. The request contains data and the response also contains data. But this data has to follow a standard format so that both applications can understand it. So here we come to data formats. The most common data format today is JSON. If you are a developer, then you would know this. This is JavaScript object notation. This is how your JSON data format looks like. You can think of it as a collection of key value pairs. Here your key is email and your value is user@gmail.com. Similarly, password. It became the standard format for most REST APIs because it is lightweight and easy to read. Now, there is an interesting question. Does the order of these fields matter? Most JSON parsers preserve the order in which the field appears, but semantically the order has no meaning. So if your JSON object looks like this, if we change the sequence of these fields, these two JSON objects represent the same data. Semantically, these two objects are same. The order does not matter. Then you have XML. This is another data format. Before JSON became popular, XML was the standard way of exchanging data between applications. And even today, many banking and telecom enterprise systems still use it. Unlike JSON, XML represents data using nested elements. So your XML data format looks like this. You will notice it is more verbose. It has opening tags, closing tags, and a tree-like structure. Now, using a standard data format alone isn't enough. For example, suppose our server expects email to be in lowercase. but the client sends it in capital email or sends it as user email, then the API will definitely fail. That's where schema comes in. Schema is basically a blueprint for your data that defines what the data should look like. For example, for JSON schema, you have email. This will be a required field and must be a valid email. Then your password, it will also be required field and minimum 8 characters are required. So this is your schema for JSON object. Now here, order of these fields doesn't matter, email and password. You can also send as password or email. Similarly, you have schema for XML, which is called XSD. This is XML schema definition. Your XML schema defines which elements are required, their data types, validations rule, and even the order in which they must appear. For example, if your XML schema looks like this, login credentials, your first field is email and your second field is password. So this means your XML document must look like this. Your email should come before password. If we change the order of these fields in XML, the API might fail. How does this relate to our bug? Many enterprise applications don't directly process the JSON they receive. Instead, the flow is something like there will be your client which will send JSON to the backend, and this will convert JSON to XML. This will be validated against an XSD, the XML schema, and this will go to the legacy system. This kind of architecture is very common in older enterprise systems. In a correctly implemented system, changing the order of these fields should not matter, obviously, on the JSON side. However, if there is a bug or an issue in the JSON to XML conversion layer, it might generate the XML in the same order as the incoming JSON. If you send your JSON as this password before the email, the XML will become like this. When this XML is validated against an XSD that expects email before password, the validation can fail and will result in an API error. So the lesson here is not that JSON field order matters. Normally it doesn't. The real lesson is that when you are working with a legacy system, there can be integration layers behind the scenes like JSON to XML conversion and XSD validation that introduce behaviors you don't immediately see as an API consumer. Now to verify this, I'll show you the schema, the XML schema, which I'm using on my server side. You can see the schema. This has email and password, but there is a tag of sequence, which makes sure that the email comes first before the password. If the sequence is different, this will cause a schema invalidation and hence the API will fail.